Drew Ramsey, K&N Pro Series East official for NASCAR. Before I was born, my uncle was involved in racing first, and his son, Wayne Ramsey, got into racing like father at dirt track and Eastside Speedway in Waynesboro. So I was born into it, you know, go to the racetrack Saturday night, cheer them on, and since then, for some reason, I always had that passion to be into racing in some way or form. So I got to looking at racing schools, and I was always heard of NTI in Mooresville, and I got looking into that, and somehow I heard about UNOH in Lima, which is the University of Northwestern Ohio. They have a high-performance motorsports program. So I went up there for one session in January of '09, and freezing cold and 8 hours away from home, snow the whole time I was there. And when I started off, I was working on regular vehicle mechanic classes, and I had to take a whole year of regular mechanic classes before I got to touch a race car. And that, you know, was kind of a bummer there at the beginning, but I thought, you know, get through this first year, the fun stuff will come. And I was in Ohio taking my first session, and a good friend of ours who we do a lot of work with in Martinsville, Virginia here, he was like, why aren't you at Patrick Henry Community College in Martinsville here, where they work on NASCAR late models. They're right beside a Camping World Truck Series team. You know, this is where you need to be. So I was like, I got to looking at it, and I was researching Patrick Henry Community College while I was in UNOH and was thinking I'm in the wrong place. So I called home and told my parents, and they were really relieved, that I was only 2 hours away from home compared to 8 hours in Ohio. And the whole time I was in Ohio, I got to thinking, here I am all the way up here, and the heart of racing is in North Carolina, and Martinsville is right across the line, and it just, to me, it felt more home into racing to be in Martinsville around everything. So I moved back home, worked this session summer with my father in a cabinet business, and just couldn't wait to get started at Patrick Henry Community College in the motorsports program in the fall of 2009. And the first day I went into class, Talmadge, he knew of the team that I'd been helping before with Taylor Brothers Motorsports at South Boston Speedway. And first day of classes, I was turning wrenches on a brand new car, and instead of Ohio, I was sitting in a regular mechanics class. So from day one, I felt like Patrick Henry Community College, you can't beat it from that aspect of it. And with my experience at Patrick Henry, I can't emphasize how much it was a help, and how I kind of already had a foot ahead going into the program with having the motorsports experience at the racetrack. I really wanted to emphasize on the more technical setup aspect of the race car, with Patrick Henry Community College having the pull-down rig, shock dynos, telemetry system on the race cars. I felt like this is my place to really expand my knowledge on the race car setup. And going in, Talmadge, with him knowing that I was already been around the sport, he kind of was able to tailor, set aside different stuff for me to work on. Hey, come do this, hey, come do that. And that really was a great feeling to have him help out, with more advanced stuff. And I went into my second year of the engine program, where, I really hadn't been around the engine side of the race car much, and just, knew it had 8 cylinders and that was it. And Lou LaRosa, I couldn't ask for a better instructor. I'd come out of class each night with a headache, because he wouldn't just ask a question and say, here's your answer. We would sit there and, be steaming trying to think of why it is. And his emphasis, which I agree with 100%, is that his theory was anybody could build an engine, anybody can torque bolts on an engine. It's what that part is that you're doing, why it's built like this, why the engine is like this, why they do this at this kind of track, why he would always talk about Martinsville Speedway, about different engine packages for here. And that was really what was spectacular about Lou, and especially with his experience. That's a whole nother story there when you talk about being an engine builder for Dale Earnhardt and Cale Yarborough, and the list goes on and on for Lou LaRosa's experience. So knowing that he was teaching me how the engine is built, that was a big confidence builder too, that I'd be able to come out and hopefully land a great job and say that Lou LaRosa taught me everything I know about a racing engine. In my second semester at Patrick Henry Community College, I was involved in a pretty major motor vehicle accident where I had just got my internship with a Camping World Truck Series team in Lynchburg with LCS Motorsports, and they were already talking about, you know, can't wait to get you to Atlanta, first race, and I was so excited. And headed back to school one day, I was in this vehicle accident and was entrapped and airlifted out, and the whole time I'm in my helicopter ride, I'm thinking, this is my dream, you know, I'm not gonna be able to walk again, you know, I don't know if I'm gonna even live through this. And that was a pretty big, hard pill to swallow there. I didn't know how if I was gonna make it out. And when I got to the hospital, everything was, you know, he's clear here, and it come to find out, all I had was a pretty major leg accident. I fractured my femur and one cut here on my forehead. And through therapy and a month or so being in wheelchair and crutches, I was able to come out of it. But the time that I was hurting because I've always been so active, and everybody knows me, I'm always into something. So me trying to strap me into a wheelchair was a hard thing to do. And the instructors at Patrick Henry Community College, they worked with me. Even Talmadge, he came to visit me in the hospital, and I almost broke in tears that day I was in the hospital because I was not expecting him and his wife to come in. So that really told me what kind of man he was and how great and how much he cared for me. And he was working out lesson plans and giving me packages and stuff to do while I was at home and, you know, study this. And he kept asking, you know, when you coming back, you know, I'm ready for you, need you back, because I missed it. I couldn't stand being at home in the hospital bed. And when I came out from home, you know, parents having to take me 2 hours down and, you know, come pick me up. And also I couldn't have done it with the excellent classmates I had. I was fortunate enough to live right into town where I wasn't that big of a hassle, but I had students and friends taking me, picking me up and taking me to classes, and that really helped me. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. And Talmadge, he said, you know, I want you back, just, you know, we can't have you getting hurt, but, you know, I want you here. So I rode around my wheelchair, did as much as I could. I felt like Booty Barker riding around because, you know, Booty Barker's the Sprint Cup Series crew chief that's in the wheelchair. So that was my nickname. I was Booty Barker, and I was Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump. Everybody was joking with me. So, and all my friends helped me out, and it was, I couldn't have asked for you know, a better place to be at to have that kind of thing happen, because I really thought I was down and out of it, and everybody pulled through to help me get through it. And I was fortunate enough to come back and really felt like I didn't miss anything, but at the same time I did, because you know, you can't get that experience when you're at home. But when I got back, I just picked right up and kept digging. I was helping the Camping World Truck Series team with my internship with Patrick Henry, and I told the official that I was coming to Martinsville for the spring race, and he said, let me know when you get there, and he gave me his phone number. I'll introduce you to some people, and I'll try to, you know, get your foot in the door. So I called him, and I come to find out the team that I was helping, we were not able to come to the race. So he said, well, still call. When I get there, I'll get you in. So when I got here, I called him up, and he said, yeah, I'll have a gentleman waiting for you at the tunnel. So they kind of got me in, and he introduced me to several of the supervisors, and I even got to meet John Darby and, you know, put a name to my face. He had already seen my resume, and several of the supervisors, I think, really took an interest in me and liked me, and one of them was even offering to have me down for a lunch interview. Now, I want to take you out to lunch at the R&D Center. So I was blown away, and I was on cloud 9 coming out. I can't believe how well this went. And the next week, I had a phone call at my house for a phone interview. So that was 1 week. So I had the phone interview the next week, and I was at the phone interview. I didn't think I did that well in the phone interview. And like I said, I worked for my dad my whole life. I'd never had a job interview. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was really doing a lot of studying and really panicking there, trying to go through an interview. And I came out of my phone interview, not thinking I did it well. And the next week, it seemed like every week something else was happening. I had another call wanting an in-person interview with John Darby at the R&D Center. And I couldn't believe it. And I let the gentleman know that my mom at work with, and first thing he said was congratulations. He said, you know, this is pretty big how many applications come in that, you know, you've gotten to the last step. This is your final step in the interview process. So I went to the interview, and they took me out to lunch, and I got to meet a lot of the gang and people that worked there. And I knew going into it, I was kind of comfortable. You know, I'd been there the whole morning with everybody before the interview. And going into it, my first interview, I'm coming into a board meeting with 10 people sitting around a table. There's a projector screen and a camera, and I'm looking at myself on the camera talking to someone in Daytona Beach. And 2 other people were on a conference call. And to make matters even better, that morning, you're driving down from Martinsville, my nerves are shaking, and I get to the R&D Center feeling pretty decent until Mike Helton, the president of NASCAR, opens the door for me and tells me good morning. So that was a kind of a oh boy type of moment. So in the interview, I felt I did very well. They couldn't believe, they questioned me twice on, this is your first interview. So I thought I was doing everything right, it seemed like, and somebody said, you know, you should know something within the next week or so, that, you know, this process is moving pretty fast. We're trying to get people in. So from there on, I played the fun game of checking the mailbox and phone every day. I couldn't wait to get home from work. And so that 1 week turned into 3 months of waiting. And finally, I had a call from someone wanting another interview in the touring series. So I called, and he said, I'll let you know. So then I was on to the next leg of waiting, and that was the longest period, I would say. And everybody at home's asked me, have you heard, have you heard, have you heard? And the interview process, it was crazy how long it was. And finally, when they said that we have a spot for you in the K&N Pro Series, I couldn't believe it, that it had finally come true, all my dreams and prayers. And when I was a kid racing go-karts, I wanted to be involved in the sport of racing in some way or form. I didn't know which way it would be, and to land a job with the corporate company of racing, NASCAR, to be a part of that family, it couldn't be a better feeling, and I couldn't be in a better place working with NASCAR. My best advice to trying to get into racing is not to give up. It's definitely a fight, and you have to really believe in yourself. And I would say the one thing is to always try to work harder than the person next to you. It's so competitive trying to get into, right now, any job, much less NASCAR, which is even tighter. You know, there's always people being let go, there's teams closing, and the NASCAR side of getting a job, it's really hard. And with the education at Patrick Henry Community College, the work ethics of, you know, owning your own business and working with, you know, it's always, you know, you have to be doing something. You know, it's not just showing up at work, you know, you get paid, you have to be doing something to make a dollar. And Lou LaRosa's work ethics, I tell you, you really learn a lot going into Lou's classes. He has a way of saying everything, and nothing he says, you know, you don't take with a grain of salt. You have to, you know, his big thing is, you know, hands out of your pocket, always staying attention. You know, if you're 15 minutes early, you're late. So the work ethics that I learned and he emphasizes, it really helped me going in. And when I got my job, I was, you know, staying around, and we have meetings before each race, and I look around, there's people standing with hands out of his pocket, and, you know, get thinking, Lou told me to do this, you know. So like I said, you always have to be trying to work harder. And some other advice I was given was that in racing, you don't always do what you're only required to do. Always try to work harder and try to exceed any expectation that, you know, is be thrown at you. And that's the key, is just, you know, you work your butt off, you can accomplish anything. If you really set your heart to it and work hard, anything's accomplishable.